This is my seat. Get up.
What would you do if someone took your first-class seat on an international flight and you discovered they needed it far more than you did? 28-year-old tech billionaire Marcus Liu was boarding a flight from San Francisco to Tokyo when he found an elderly woman sitting in his assigned seat, 2A. What happened in the next 60 seconds didn't just shock every passenger on that plane. It revealed a truth about wealth, privilege, and humanity that went viral worldwide and changed how millions of people think about what truly matters in life. Marcus had just sold his AI startup for $2.3 billion and was heading to Tokyo for meetings with investors. He'd boarded early, expecting to settle into his usual first-class comfort for the 12-hour flight, when he discovered seat 2A occupied by a woman who appeared to be in her 70s, small and frail, with medical equipment beside her, including a portable oxygen concentrator. The flight attendant was already there, clearly in the middle of a difficult conversation. "Ma'am, this isn't your seat. Your ticket shows 38B in economy. I need you to move to your assigned seat so this passenger can sit down." The elderly woman looked confused and distressed, her hands trembling as she held her boarding pass. "I'm so sorry. My granddaughter booked this flight, and she said this was my seat. I don't understand. She said it was important I sit here because of my breathing." Her accent suggested she wasn't a native English speaker, and her confusion seemed genuine rather than manipulative. Another flight attendant had joined the situation, and passengers in nearby first-class seats were watching with expressions ranging from sympathy to impatience, clearly wanting the disruption resolved so the flight could depart on time. Marcus saw the entire situation in an instant. A woman who clearly had serious health issues, a granddaughter who'd probably desperately wanted her grandmother comfortable but couldn't afford first class, and a mistake that was about to force an elderly person with oxygen equipment to navigate to the back of the plane while holding up departure. The flight attendant looked at Marcus apologetically. "Sir, I'm so sorry for this inconvenience. We'll have her moved immediately, and I'll make sure you receive compensation." Marcus held up his hand, interrupting her mid-sentence. What he said next made everyone within earshot go silent. "Actually, there's been a mistake with my booking. This passenger has the correct seat. My seat is 38B in economy." Marcus delivered this with such calm authority that the flight attendant hesitated, clearly confused about how a passenger who'd paid thousands for first class could have made such an error. "Sir, your boarding pass clearly shows." Marcus smiled and said more firmly, "I'm telling you my seat is 38B. Please help this passenger get settled comfortably and show me to my actual seat in economy." The elderly woman looked at Marcus with dawning understanding and tears in her eyes, but he simply squeezed her shoulder gently and said, "Enjoy the flight, ma'am. You're exactly where you're supposed to be." The walk to seat 38B in economy took Marcus past dozens of passengers who'd witnessed the exchange, their expressions showing shock, confusion, and something else, a kind of restored faith in human decency. When Marcus reached 38B, a middle seat between a young mother with a crying baby and a large man overflowing into the adjacent space, he settled in without complaint or drama, pulling out his laptop as if 12 hours in a cramped middle seat was exactly what he'd planned. The young mother next to him looked mortified. "I'm so sorry about the noise. My daughter is teething," and Marcus just smiled. "Don't worry about it. I was a fussy baby too, according to my mom. Do what you need to do." Word spread through the plane with remarkable speed. Passengers whispered to each other, flight attendants exchanged glances, and several people discreetly pulled out phones to text friends about what they'd witnessed before the flight took off. A businessman sitting across the aisle from Marcus leaned over. "That was an incredibly generous thing you did. Most people in first class would have insisted she be removed." Marcus shrugged. "Most people in first class can afford 12 uncomfortable hours. That woman couldn't. It's not complicated. She needed that seat more than I did." Being able to help when you have resources isn't generosity. It's just basic human decency. About 2 hours into the flight, something remarkable began happening. The businessman who'd spoken to Marcus called a flight attendant and quietly upgraded the young mother with the crying baby to an empty premium economy seat with more space and comfort. Another first-class passenger sent back toys and snacks for children in economy. A woman offered to switch seats with an elderly man who was struggling in a middle seat. It was as if Marcus's choice had given everyone permission to be their better selves, sparking a wave of kindness that transformed the entire flight's atmosphere. One passenger later described it on social media. It was like watching humanity remember what it's supposed to be. When the plane landed in Tokyo, something unexpected happened. Passengers broke into spontaneous applause as Marcus stood to exit. Several people approached to thank him, not just for helping the elderly woman, but for reminding them that wealth and status should serve humanity rather than separate us from it. The elderly woman was waiting near the gate with her granddaughter, both crying as they thanked Marcus for a kindness that had probably saved the grandmother from a medical crisis that economy seating could have triggered. "I tried so hard to afford first class," the granddaughter said through tears, "but I could only manage economy. I lied to my grandmother because I didn't want her to worry. What you did, I'll never forget it." The story didn't end at the airport. Another passenger had filmed the initial interaction and posted it online with the caption, "Just watched a billionaire give up his first-class seat to an elderly stranger without hesitation. This is what wealth with character looks like." The video went viral within hours, generating millions of views and sparking a global conversation about privilege, kindness, and responsibility. Marcus became an overnight sensation, though he deflected attention in interviews. "I happened to be in a position to help, so I helped." That's not heroic, it's baseline human behavior. The question isn't why I gave up my seat. The question is why we've created a society where that's considered extraordinary instead of expected. This story challenges us to examine what we do with whatever privileges we possess, whether it's wealth, health, education, or simply being in the right place at the right time to help someone. Marcus Liu didn't perform an act of extraordinary charity. He made a simple calculation. Someone needed something more than he did, and he had the power to help, so he helped. The shock value of his choice reveals how rarely we see people with resources voluntarily choosing discomfort so others can have dignity and safety. We've normalized a world where privilege creates distance from others' struggles rather than responsibility toward them. The ripple effects on that flight demonstrate something powerful. Acts of conscience are contagious. When one person chooses generosity over entitlement, it gives others permission to do the same, creating cascades of kindness that transform entire environments. Marcus's choice sparked a wave of goodness throughout the plane because people needed to see someone model what it looks like to put humanity ahead of comfort. We're all waiting for permission to be our better selves, and sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to go first. So here's the question. What seat are you sitting in that someone else needs more? What privilege do you hold that could serve someone's desperate need? And when faced with a choice between your comfort and someone else's crisis, will you have the courage to choose as Marcus did? Because the true measure of character isn't what you do when it costs you nothing. It's what you do when helping requires genuine sacrifice, when nobody would blame you for choosing yourself, but you choose someone else anyway. If this story inspired you, like and subscribe for more content about everyday people making extraordinary choices. Comment below about times you've witnessed or performed acts of kindness that required sacrifice. And remember, we all have something to give, and someone always needs what we take for granted. The only question is whether we'll notice and whether we'll care enough to act.